I'm someone, I guess you could say, who was a pediatric vestibular patient. The first vertigo attack I ever had was, I think I was 10, it might have been 9. I remember being in school and I remember walking down the hall and all of a sudden everything was spinning and I fell to the floor in the hallway and my teacher didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know what was wrong. I was extremely scared. I just kept telling her that everything was spinning. It eventually went away that day, but it was scary and I didn't know what had happened. My parents didn't know what had happened. I had another vertigo episode probably every 2 or 3 years. And so I never really paid it much mind. I just hoped it would never happen again. As I got into, let's say, my mid-teens, my vertigo attacks were still very sporadic, but I noticed that I couldn't walk certain places without feeling weird. I felt like sometimes when I was walking on the ground that it would be bobbing like a boat. And if I was in a grocery store or a warehouse store of some kind and they have those long straight aisles with the big tall ceilings, I would be hugging the wall. I didn't know why I felt that way. It did not make sense to me. It wasn't vertigo in the sense that I wasn't spinning in that moment, but I was off balance and I just could not kick that. When I was 24, I had the worst vertigo attack I've ever had in my entire life. I was asleep and I just woke up and I had been on my back, I remember, and I woke up and I immediately flipped over to my stomach and like braced on the bed like this because I realized how dizzy I was and I didn't know which way was up. And when I finally stopped spinning and I stood up, I was just very tired and very exhausted and scared and anxious. That was that one episode that really changed everything. And I said, okay, I have to seek out a doctor now. So the first thing I did was I sought out an ENT. After that first appointment, they said I had bilateral BPPV. They performed an epi for me and sent me home. And they said, let us know how you feel. My acute vertigo attacks started to become less frequent, which was good. But that wobbliness, that imbalance that I had been feeling for years and years was always there. In my late 20s, I got married. And then I had my first baby at 29. And it was a wonderful time. I found that being pregnant, my vertigo was still there, but it wasn't as bad. And then I gave birth to my daughter. And after that, it all came back. The vertigo was there. The imbalance was worse. Now I'm in my early 30s and I am just feeling helpless. I couldn't go to work. I was scared to drive. In Baltimore, we have 2 tunnels that go under the inner harbor. I couldn't do the tunnels. I would have a massive panic attack. Being in a tube like that, driving down a tube I would suddenly feel like I'm going backwards instead of forwards. I didn't feel safe enough to carry my daughter down the stairs. I felt like I couldn't be a good friend. I couldn't be a good mom. I just had moments where I was so anxiety ridden and I started to feel like a nuisance. I started to feel like I couldn't do anything. My will to live was just kind of, it wasn't there. I didn't want to kill myself, but I didn't, I thought if something happened to me, I'm good. At least it'll put me out of this misery. I didn't have a diagnosis. I still didn't know what was wrong. And it was so frustrating. It was so frustrating. It was at that point in my early 30s when I thought, I want to have more kids. I want to have my quality of life back. I want to drive and not feel scared. I want to be able to work and go out with friends and have, a better quality of life. And so because I live in Baltimore, we have Johns Hopkins right here. And in my mind, I said, if Johns Hopkins doesn't have someone who can help me, nobody can. I just searched for vestibular something or other, and a bunch of different doctors' names came up, and I threw a dart, metaphorically, at the screen, and I said, okay, I pick you. And this doctor changed my life. He was so knowledgeable. He was so empathetic. He told me, he said, I think you have vestibular migraines. And I said, oh, I don't get migraines. I get headaches, but I don't get migraines. And he said, well, vestibular migraines are different. Vestibular migraines aren't your classic migraines that are going to give you, they don't necessarily give you the auras in front of your eyes. They don't necessarily make you vomit. They're going to give you vertigo. That's what these migraines do. I was so happy to have a diagnosis. I remember that specific day that when I had that first appointment with him, just going home and feeling so much better. I was still dizzy, but I felt so much better because of the fact that, I had an answer finally, and I had tools and a path forward where, oh, I can actually address this now. All through my 20s and into my 30s, after first being diagnosed with BPPV and learning all about vestibular medicine and vestibular disorders, I tried to help people as much as I could by being a support online, in person, people I knew in life who struggled also with dizziness and didn't know what was going on with them. And I thought to myself, after the big appointment with this one doctor who changed my life, I said, well, maybe I could do this in a different way. Maybe I could become a doctor and actually help vestibular patients. And so then I went online and I said, okay, well, what do you need to do to become a vestibular physical therapist? And I just graduated this past December with my biology degree. I've applied to the graduate program at the University of Maryland, Baltimore campus. I just found out that I got in. And so I start graduate school and start my doctorate program this May of 2023. I had the opportunity to go to Johns Hopkins Outpatient Center and observe 3 or 4 different physical therapists there. And as I'm doing this and I'm in this laboratory and talking with different PTs, in walks my PT, this doctor of mine who I saw at Hopkins, and who, changed my life and was very inspirational to me. And he looks down at my name tag and he looks up at me and he goes, it's you! You're doing it! You're doing it! My only hope is that when I do treat patients who have vestibular issues and I can relate to them on that level, knowing that I've, been there, I know how you feel, I truly know how you feel, that gives them a little more comfort and to have that empathy, because I think that's the biggest thing that a practitioner should have. Like if I had just started to feel vertigo one day and then got a medication and boom, it was gone, like would I have been inspired to research vestibular medicine? Would I have gotten to see all these doctors? Would I have met a vestibular PT? And so I am glad for the journey that I've been on, and I'm excited to see where it takes me.